in the last stream, we were working on quite a few things. We finally got our blood altar down and upgraded it to a tier 2 blood altar with these 8 blank runes around the bottom. And then at the very end of the last stream, managed to get our first steel casing, which is currently in the system. Another thing that we did right at the start of the last stream is we put down all of these dirt blocks here to level out the area that our bees fly around in. And I think this has paid off massively between streams, because now if we head on over to our storage drawers over here, you'll see that we have a lot more resources. We're up at 2,048 nether stars, 2,048 obsidian. Both of those drawers, of course, completely full, but with the void upgrades, we're now actually deleting excess nether stars, which, whilst good in a sense, is probably bad in other ways as well, because we definitely don't want our system getting backed up with nether stars and thus stopping everything else from being generated. However, going forward, we are almost certainly going to want to get more than 2,048 nether stars, especially if we're going to make some of the highest tiers of apiary, which require a ton of nether stars. And so I think it's definitely worth throwing an emerald upgrade in there. And just for the sake of it, I feel like we might as well also throw an upgrade kit onto the obsidian as well. But now, chat, I really want to start looking at upgrading our apiaries. Right now we have 2 tier 1 apiaries. Ideally, before the end of the pack, we want to have 4 tier 4 apiaries so that we can really start to produce just a crazy number of resources, especially if we're going to work our way down into some of the later game mods and some of the final quests in the quest book here for some of the creative items. But if we're going to get there, I think we're going to have some kind of automation in place, because if we look at the recipe for the tier 4 apiary, to make it, you need 4 tier 3 apiaries, and then 4 tier 2 apiaries, and then 4 tier 1 apiaries. That requires 4 tier 4 beehives, which requires a tier 3, then a tier 2, then a tier 1. So we would have to make a ridiculous number of tier 1 beehives for every single tier 4 apiary that we make. We'd also need a ridiculous number of nether stars, a ridiculous number of honeycomb blocks, just a crazy number of crafts, which we could do manually, but I think it would make our lives a lot easier if we had our refined storage system do all of that crafting, or a lot of that crafting, for us. And thankfully, auto crafting with refined storage is not too difficult to get going. Basically, all we need is a crafter. For now, we can start with just the one, that being this guy right here. I'm going to bookmark these on the left. We need a pattern grid, that being this guy right here. And we also need some blank patterns. And that's kind of about it. That's kind of all we really need to get started with refined storage auto crafting. And I don't think that any of this should really be too difficult for us to make. The blank pattern, super easy. 3 redstone, 3 glass, and 3 quartz enriched iron. The pattern grid, a little bit more pricey. It does require another regular grid, which is a machine casing, an illumination panel, and then a destruction core, improved processor, and construction core. And then the crafter is very much more of the same, more quartz enriched iron, another machine casing, as well as more cores and more processors. Now, I have been doing some more nether quartz smelting between streams, so we do have quite a bit of silicon ready to go here. Although, going forward, I think we are going to want to have a silicon bee, which we can make with a Certus quartz bee and a nether quartz bee. And so I might take a quick detour here and see if we can't get a couple of Certus quartz and nether quartz bees breeding in our apiary breeder, so that going forward we just have a silicon bee and we can just produce silicon continually, like we're doing with most of our other bee-based resources. So nether quartz and Certus quartz, and I've got 16 jars here, but I guess we only really need like a few. It is a 100% chance, so we're guaranteed to get the silicon bee here. So it's not like we need to put 16 in and just hope that we get it eventually. Once this is done, we will have 3 silicon bees that we can then add, hopefully, to our next apiary when it's ready. But while we wait for that, let's go and let's make some more cores and some more processors for these for this crafter. Okay, so a little bit of processor and core making later, and I think we have basically everything that we need here. We are going to have to make 2 machine casings, which are quartz enriched iron combined up with regular old stone and steel plates. On the steel plate front, we do have 36 steel plates, so we should be good to make both of those over in our advanced crafting table here. 1 and 2. We could probably also do with a little bit more in the way of quartz enriched iron. We do have 10 left here, but I have a feeling that we're probably going to need more than 10 over the course of today's stream, and we're almost certainly going to need more than 10 going forward as well. And that does remind me, actually, one thing that I do want to get set up sooner rather than later is I would like to get another drawer here with another botany pot. Now, I can probably repurpose this botany pot right here because I think it's highly unlikely that we're going to need more than this many wither roses in the future. And so I think what I'm going to do temporarily is drop down this drawer here, quickly snatch this botany pot, place that botany pot down over here, and then what I want to do is I want to begin growing grass. And by grass, I mean the tall grass that we get when we bone meal regular grass, the type of grass that we're going to need a ludicrous amount of to make all of the tier 1 apiaries that we need. Again, if we're going to need hundreds of tier 1 apiaries, that means we're going to probably need like thousands of grass pieces. So if we can get this here automated sooner rather than later, that would be ideal. So it looks like you can't put regular grass on dirt, but I can put turf on dirt. So if I grab the remaining 3 grass that we have here, craft that up into a turf block, I can then right-click the turf block on here, and that is a very weird-looking plant, but that should grow and should produce grass going forward there, slowly but surely. So chat has pointed out that the drop chance on grass here, if you use turf, is very low. It's 5%. Also, this does produce turf as well, so we would have to have either a chest here or a drawer that could hold 2 items. I think instead it's probably going to make more sense for us to look at using this method at the bottom. You can grow actual grass, but you do have to have a different block underneath it. Something like regular grass or podzol or scorched grass or dry grass. Any of these do work, but regular dirt isn't an option. Looking through JEI, we can make regular grass using both Astral Sorcery and Blood Magic, and it looks like the Blood Magic version might not be too difficult. This alchemy table here is something that we are going to have to make sooner rather than later to progress on with Blood Magic, and the only thing that we're currently missing in terms of actually making the altar there is a blank slate. And as we saw in the last stream, the blank slates can be made fairly easily by just placing stone into a tier 1 altar with 1000 LP. And so if we just quickly grab 1 stone here, drop that in like so. I'm not quite sure how many LP we have in here. It looks like we have 2.4 buckets worth, which I think is 2,400 LP. I think that's a 1-to-1 conversion there. So I think we should have enough for this to turn into a slate. We totally do. Perfect. And that should be pretty much everything for the alchemy table here, which, I'm not gonna lie, does look very cool. I'm a big fan of the way this looks. And in here, we should be able to produce the grass. So we have to get 1 dirt, 1 bone meal, and 1 wheat seed, all of which we should have lying around. We get dirt, we get a regular old wheat seed, and we grab a bone meal. We're going to put all 3 of those in here. I don't think it matters where we put it. I think all that matters is that we put our blood orb, that being this guy, into here. And once this bar fills up, I think we should be good to go. I'm fairly certain the recipe does require LP. You can see right here it says tier 1, drains 200 LP, and the time it takes is 20 ticks, which is 10 seconds. And so, boom, look at that. We have a grass block. And so now, over here, we can get rid of the turf. We can pull out this excess turf that we've made. We can replace down the botany pot. This time we can put grass into it. And then from there, if we just quickly grab some bone meal and our shears, what we should be able to do is, of course, just grab some grass the old-fashioned way, place that in like so, and now going forward, not only is the grow time lower, previously it was like a minute and a half, now it's down at 30 seconds, but we're also significantly more likely to get a piece of grass every single time this grows. And going forward, of course, we can also use the same method to put grass in some of our other botany pots. For example, the oak sapling here could definitely benefit from having grass in there. I believe that is going to increase the drop chance of all of the items here if we replace that dirt with grass. However, for now, I think we can pivot back over into a little bit of refined storage, because we should now have basically everything to make a crafter, and hopefully basically everything to make a regular grid. We made the illumination panels before. You make them in sets of 3. And then from there, we can upgrade that regular grid into a pattern grid. And at that point, we should be pretty much good to go. So I will put the pattern grid down right about there for now. And I will also grab some orange dye to make that match. And then now what we can do is if we place down the crafter somewhere connected to our refined storage system, again, for now, we'll put it like right here, although we're probably almost certainly going to move some of this stuff fairly soon. But for now, if we put it there, what we can now do is we can now teach our refined storage system how to craft certain things. For example, let's imagine we want to teach our system how to craft crafting tables. To do that, we are going to need a few more patterns, which thankfully are fairly easy to make, and we should have, I think, more than enough glass for that. We totally do. It's only the quartz-enriched iron that we're missing, but thankfully we did get quite a bit of quartz-enriched iron cooking over here. 3 patterns should be okay for now. Basically, what we can do is we can teach our system different crafts. So, for example, if we wanted to teach our system how to make a crafting table, we'd first have to teach it how to make planks, which we can do like this. We can put in an oak plank and teach it that 1 oak log equals 4 oak planks. Create in code. You can also shift-click these recipes in, by the way, from JEI. So, for example, crafting table. We can shift-click that in by holding shift and clicking move items. It goes in and create. And then now, if we put both of those patterns into the crafter, which by default can hold 9 patterns, we can make more crafters in the future. But now our system effectively knows how to make these recipes. So in here, if I type in crafting table, you'll see that while we don't have one, there is the option to craft it. And I believe one of these buttons on the left here does allow us to show only craftable items, in which case these would be the only things shown, or to exclude craftable items by showing no craftables, at which point it would show everything apart from the things that we can craft. So right now, if we click on the crafting table, we could then request, let's say, 5 crafting tables, click start, and what's going to happen is our refined system is going to one by one take a log, craft it down to planks, take those planks, craft it into a crafting table, and then place that crafting table into the disk drive. It's going to do that 5 times, and boom, look at that. We have 5 regular crafting tables. So the idea is that we can take that premise of teaching our system how to craft things to the extremes by teaching it every single recipe required to make a tier 4 apiary, and then just request 4 tier 4 apiaries, and the machine will make them for each of our apiary multi-blocks. So looking through the recipe for the tier 4 apiaries, a lot of these recipes are not too bad. Like for the most part, and we can get rid of these, by the way. I think shift right click, yeah, and that will delete the recipe from a pattern if you want to reuse that pattern, because of course we don't actually need our system to be able to make crafting tables. That's not something that we need. I will go and make enough patterns here to fill the crafter. And so what we can do is we can start teaching it recipes like this. Now, of course, right away we run into a problem here. The problem is that it has put in a copper honeycomb block when that's not what we're going to work with. We're most likely going to work with regular honeycomb blocks made with regular honey. So what we should do is we should teach our system how to make regular honeycomb blocks, because it's going to have to do quite a bit of that. There are 2 options here. We can either manually switch this copper honeycomb block for a regular honeycomb block, like that, at which point the recipe will only ever use regular honeycomb blocks. Alternatively, you can unclick the exact box. If you untick this box, it will use any honeycomb block available to it. So if, for example, there were some copper honeycomb blocks in our system just lying around, it would use those before crafting new ones. I think for now, I'm fine with setting this to exact and forcing it to use these honeycombs to make the honeycomb blocks, as opposed to trying to craft like sand honeycomb blocks to use those. So this should be fine. We can encode that. The tier 3 apiary runs into the same issue there. We can just replace that with the honeycomb block, and that is good to go. Let me clear my inventory out just a little bit, chat, because it is getting extraordinarily messy here, and we're kind of losing track of where things are. The tier 2 apiary, again, fairly easy. We can replace these 4 here with 4 honeycomb blocks in code. The tier 1 apiary, again, is completely fine. Where things start to get a little bit more difficult is with the tier 4 Beehive, because in order to autocraft the tier 4 Beehive, we need to have honey blocks automated. And right now, we don't have that. So let me quickly put all of these into here. Right now, we can make most things. And in fact, we could probably go through and quickly teach it some of the earlier recipes as well. For example, we can definitely teach it how to make the tier 1 hive with a beehive and a grass. we could teach it how to make a tier 2 hive. Like so. Again, I'll replace the copper honeycomb there with regular old honeycomb. And I think the tier 3 honeycomb is also pretty easy to do. Thankfully, we're not going to have to teach our system how to make the blocks of beeswax because we do have our beeswax in a compacting drawer, so the system can already access it both in block form and in regular beeswax form. Unfortunately, we have filled up our crafter here, so we are going to have to make one more crafter because there are a few more recipes, like the actual beehive recipe, that still need to be taught. But more importantly than that, there's also the honey block recipe that needs to be taught as well. And up until now, we've been making our honey blocks down here. And I think we're going to continue to do that, but we're probably going to have to change the way that this system works. There are a couple of options for it, but after talking with the Twitch chat about this a little bit, I think our best option for now at least is probably going to be to use sticks in the solidification chamber to produce blocks of honey directly. So if we take these glass bottles out and we put sticks in instead, 3 sticks equals 1 block of honey. And we can do the same again here. It does take 100 ticks between each craft, but that's fine. That's 5 seconds. It's really not too bad. That's going to produce honey blocks. So I think what we probably want to do is we probably want to get an exporter from refined storage. This is going to allow us to automatically send sticks to the solidification chamber, which will be placed in like so. We then want to take the honey that is made from the solidification chamber and make sure that some of it goes through into the melting chamber, like so, to make sure we can keep making honey blocks, but then that the rest of the honey blocks that are made are usable by the refined storage system for making apiaries. So for now, I am going to go with cable here. This is going to look pretty bad, chat, and also we are going to need both more iron and more nether quartz. My plan going forward, as I've mentioned a few times now, I do want to do kind of a big base rework. And one of the things I want to talk about in today's stream before we get to that big base rework is Chisel and Bits. And I will get back to that in a little later on in today's stream. I'll bookmark it just to remind myself. But for now, just to kind of show how we want this to work, I'm going to make another exporter. And in order to connect that exporter to our refined storage system, we're going to run cable all the way over to the solidification chamber. Now, in the future, once we do a base redesign, I will do, I guess, one of two things. I will either move the solidification chamber closer to the refined storage system, or we might look at investing in some wireless refined storage. You can make both a network transmitter and a network receiver, and we can use those to wirelessly connect up our refined storage items without having to run cable to them. The reason I'm not making those just yet is twofold. One, they're quite expensive, requiring quite a few processors and cores to make, and 2, they require quite a bit of power, which right now we're doing okay on, but we're definitely going to want to look at producing more power fairly soon before we start looking into using a lot of power on like wireless refined storage. Okay, so exporter, nice and easy, and we're also going to need an external storage as well. There we go, perfect. So I've run this cable all the way along to here. The idea is that we're going to have an exporter on the solidification chamber, like so, and that exporter is going to automatically export sticks. Now, for now, we do have sticks being made over in here. However, as soon as we start to use them, we're going to run out of sticks very quickly. And I think even as soon as we start crafting, like if we teach our system here how to craft logs into planks and planks into sticks, we're probably still going to run out of wood fairly quickly. So one of the things I do want to do in an upcoming stream is look at making a large tree farm from industrial foregoing. That shouldn't be too difficult for us to set up and should give us basically unlimited wood going forward. For now, though, all we have to do is if we right-click on the exporter, we can put sticks in here. And then now, sticks that we have in our refined storage system, or should I say sticks that our refined storage system has access to, will be sent down to here. So what's happening right now is the refined storage system can see through the external storage bus that we have over here that we have 500 sticks. It's taking those 500 sticks and it's pumping them all the way around over, down, and into the solidification chamber. Now, you'll see it's taking a little bit of time because it has to pump 3 stacks of sticks over before the thing actually starts. We can give that a bit of a heads up here. Once it's like once it's up and running, it should kind of just keep going because it can pump sticks in faster than the machine can use the sticks. From there, what we want to do is we want to get another storage drawer because we want to be able to store the honey that we're making for use by our refined storage system. So we're going to do the storage drawer, and this is also where the external storage comes into play. We're also going to want to get some item cable, and of course we need the item wrench to make that work. Basically, we're going to extract the honey blocks from the solidification chamber into this drawer. Like so. We're then going to lock this drawer to honey blocks. From there, what we want to do is we want to extract those honey blocks into the melting chamber, and this is one of those situations where, once again, I think we're not going to want to use this item cable because I think it's possible that this item cable can hold a lot of items, which could be problematic because we want some of our blocks to stay in this drawer, right? So I think this is probably a situation where, as janky as it's going to look, and I do admit ahead of time here, it is going to look pretty janky, it might not be a bad idea for us to grab an item router with a puller and a sender. And this is going to be a very bizarre system, chat, but basically, let me just check both of these are empty. They are. We're going to place down the item router. It doesn't matter where we put it, but I'm going to put it right here. We're going to have it pull from this drawer. So we right-click with the puller, shift right-click here, and put that in. That should pull those honey blocks into the buffer. And then we shift right-click on the sender here, and then put that in. This is going to mean that we have 64 honey blocks in here, and then a further 64 in here. So we are going to have to get 128 honey blocks before things start to back up. But once they start to back up, what we should then be able to do is if we put down an external storage right about here, we should then be able to start using that excess honey for producing more hives. It's an extremely janky system, made even more janky by the fact that our base is a complete mess right now. But I think in general, the premise is sound. The only other thing that we need to do is make sure that we are exporting honeycomb over here, because if we're not exporting honeycomb, then we're going to run into issues where the melting chamber is just filled up with 2 blocks of honey, which I don't think is a huge deal. I think you can put 2 blocks of honey in, but it kind of defeats the point because we get less honey back. We get the exact same amount of honey back, 2,000 millibuckets, as opposed to the 5,000 that we get with this recipe. So boom and boom. There's our second exporter. The way that we've kind of set everything up here is a little awkward. I think what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to kind of just disconnect the power here. We probably do want to move this inscriber anyway, but it also makes this system kind of a bit more symmetrical as well if we do something like this. And then all we have to do there is just get a regular honeycomb. And of course, there are going to be no regular honeycombs in there because that one is specifically filtered not to have regular honeycombs. So we'll place the honeycomb in there. That should now begin exporting honeycombs from our system. And so now this setup should work. Let me temporarily get rid of this here. So we have over here an exporter sending sticks to the solidification chamber. Those sticks are combined with our honey to produce honey blocks. Those honey blocks are sent around to this storage drawer here. Those are then pulled out by this router and sent down to the melting chamber. So 64 are going to be in this melting chamber, 64 are going to be in this item router, and then any extra that we have are going to be in this oak drawer. Over in here, we also have honeycombs being exported via this exporter. The honeycombs are combining up with the honey blocks to make honey, which is being pulled out via this fluid cable back into the solidification chamber to be made into more honey blocks. And this whole system is basically an automated version of the system that we had right at the start of the stream, where over time we will produce extra honey blocks. And the idea is that once we start to back up on honey blocks in here, our system can then use those honey blocks for the crafting of those super high tier apiaries. It's going to take a while, and we do need a lot of honey blocks to make things happen, but eventually we should get there. So chat's made an interesting suggestion here. There is a regulator augment, which if you hover over it and press I, you'll see right here it says, hold I for more information. It says allows precise control over how many items are kept in a certain inventory. So if we can get one of these, which should be pretty easy to do, the augment core is nice and simple, and the redstone comparators also should not be too difficult for us at this point in time. So I'm hoping that with this, what we should be able to do is if we put this into our sender module, that being this guy, we can configure this to only keep, let's say, if I say 1, I wonder how that plays out, because I'm assuming that means that it's only ever going to have 1 honey block in this melting chamber. So like right now, there are 57 items in here, but it's not sending it because there isn't 1 in here. I think we want the number to be higher than 1, because if we set it to 1, there's a possibility that both of these slots here fill up with honeycomb, which would be a problem. Let's set it to like 10. That way it should send until we have 10. So if I take some out, it's going to fill it up to exactly 10, and then the rest are going to stay in here. That is super useful because it means that we can, it's not super useful, it's ever so slightly useful. It just means that we can start to back up on honey faster. And you can see now that we're slowly but surely generating honey blocks and the system is still working, which is cool. Now over here, our silicon bees are done, which is why the system is a little clogged. However, the system was already clogged, as you can see, and that's just due to the fact that our apiaries are doing too good of a job. We're producing combs faster than our centrifuge can take care of them. I imagine that these are probably backing up over here as well. So one of the things that I do think that we're going to want to do going forward, and probably in the next stream, is look at getting the elite centrifuge. Now, to get the elite centrifuge, it is, I believe, the exact same multi-block. It's a 3x3x4, but to make it, we need the elite centrifuge casing, which is made with netherite. And right now, we are actually not actively producing netherite. However, I do believe that Isaac of the Past did set aside a block of netherite specifically for pollinating with a netherite bee. So the recipe for a netherite bee, or the combination, is gold and netherrack, both of which we should have. And so if we quickly grab 2 bee jars here, what we should be able to do is we should be able to grab a netherrack and a gold bee, breed those together in the apiary breeder, and then between this stream and next stream, begin producing hopefully large amounts of netherite so that when we come back, we can actually set up a tier 3 centrifuge. So gold is not being used. We're not making gold actively, but we should have a gold bee around somewhere. We do. And I think the same is true for netherrack as well. I don't think we're actively producing netherrack at the moment, but we do have the netherrack bee. Perfect. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the netherrack bee requires flowers, and I would assume that the gold bee requires gold. Oh no, the netherrack bee requires netherrack, and the gold bee requires gold, in a shocking turn of events. So we'll take this out. We don't need a third silicon bee, I don't think. Let's do gold bee and netherrack bee with gold ingots and netherrack, and we'll do the exact same again. We'll do 2 of those. I think 2 netherite bees. We'll do 3 just in case. We'll do 3 netherite bees, and that should be more than enough to get us a good amount of netherite for that upgraded centrifuge. Chant does make the good point that if this is clogged, which it currently is, then the apiary will just continually cycle. It won't actually produce any new bees, the breeder that is. So it's probably worth us grabbing a bunch of these combs. Also, by the looks of it, I should eat some of these combs as well, but I can't because my meat feeder is doing too good of a job at feeding me. Which it does remind me that we should probably take a quick dip down to our spawner and fill up our meat feeder. How are we doing on liquid meat? We have got 1,233,000 millibuckets of liquid meat here, so over 1,000 buckets worth, which is beautiful. So we can fill that right up and pop that back on our heads. So again, more construction cores and more advanced processes later. I've made another crafter. The idea here, of course, being, and by the way, you can put these wherever you want for regular crafts. It also doesn't matter which way they face. I made the other one face upwards because I thought it looked good. We can do the same with this one as well. So long as it's connected to the refined storage system, these crafters can go anywhere you want. So in here, we're going to try and do the last couple of crafts. So I believe we need to teach our system how to make a regular beehive. We also do need some more blank patterns. And then what are we missing? I think we've got a lot of the stuff required here. If I was to request a tier 4 apiary, what is it that I'm missing? So I'm missing 1,738 grass, which we are working on, albeit slowly but surely. I'm missing planks because our system doesn't know how to make planks. And we're also missing 969 honey blocks. So you need 1,000 honey blocks per tier 4 apiary, along with 100 nether stars and, 250 tier 1 beehives, which is pretty pricey. But for the most part, we're actually pretty close. We've got, all of the honeycombs we need. We've got the 1,000 beeswax we need. We've got the 1,000 beeswax blocks we need. All of those are good. So really, we need to do two things. We need to teach our system how to make planks again, just like we did at the start of the stream. For that, we are going to have to get some more quartz-enriched iron, which thankfully we have. We do beautiful. I was not quite certain that we were actually going to have quartz-enriched iron down there, but we do, so we can make that last pattern there and quickly encode the oak to planks recipe. And at that point, I think we're pretty good to go to where hopefully in one of the coming streams, we should be able to just request a tier 4 apiary. And so long as our botany pot and our solidification chamber are doing their jobs, we should be good to go, because hopefully eventually we've already got 50 honey blocks. So hopefully by the time we come back for the next stream, we'll have more than 1,000 honey blocks. Hopefully we'll have more than 1,736 grass. So hopefully both of those will be good to go. We can just click start and we can produce our first tier 4 apiary, which is going to start giving us insane amounts of resources. And at that point, we might even have to make multiple of the elite centrifuges, depending on how fast they can process all of the honeycombs that are made. Twitch chat has been shouting at me, reminding me that there is a quartz-enriched iron bee, and that we should probably get that bee as opposed to continually utilizing the alloy smelter downstairs to make all of our quartz-enriched iron. And given that it is just a silicon bee and an iron bee, and you have a 100% chance there, I can't help but agree with them that we should probably also grab 2 more bee jars here, or at least 4 bee jars, grab one of our iron and new silicon bees, and use those to produce a quartz-enriched iron bee. So once again, we'll take all these out. We will go iron bee with iron, silicon bee with silicon, and 2 empty jars. And again, just like before, that should hopefully slowly but surely produce the bees that we're after. We've got all the netherite bees. For now, I'm going to put those guys... actually, for now, I think we should probably actually get those down in one of our apiaries. I was going to temporarily put them in the crate over there, but I think it's probably well worth putting down the block of netherite and actually getting both of these bees going. He's spinning, which is beautiful. That means you should start pollinating fairly soon. And we'll do the same with this guy as well. Hopefully he'll start pollinating sooner rather than later. And if we can kind of start to clear the backlog of honeycombs that we have here, we should hopefully be able to start producing netherite for the future. And also hopefully start producing quartz-enriched iron as well. We'll probably wait and put that in one of our newer apiaries when we have that up and running. But that's definitely a good investment for the future. For now, though, one of the other things I do want to get from Refined Storage is the wireless crafting grid. This guy right here, which, not too difficult. 6 quartz-enriched iron, 1 ender pearl, 1 advanced processor, and then 1 regular crafting grid, which we have already made today, and we should be able to make another one, I think, fairly easily. We do need a destruction core, which we're missing. But once we have one of the destruction cores, we should then be able to craft up a regular grid. From there, turning that into a crafting grid is nice and easy. Just a crafting table and an advanced processor. And then from there, making that into a wireless crafting grid is, again, nice and easy. So to make this work, we're also going to need a wireless transmitter, which does mean we need 1 more machine casing, which again is 4 steel plates, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 regular old stone, and then the hardest bit for us right now, potentially 4 quartz-enriched iron. Thankfully, we have it. I thought there was a possibility we didn't, but 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. And boom. So here, what we can do is we can put down the wireless transmitter anywhere on the Refined Storage network. We do have to make sure it's connected to cable, though. So for now, what we'll do is we'll put down a cable right about here, and we'll put down the wireless transmitter above it, like so. Now, in order for this to work, we do need energy in our wireless crafting grid. Thankfully, I'm fairly certain, if we come over to our flux controller and we go to the wireless charging section, right now it's just charging our armor slots. Unfortunately, we can't add main inventory charging here, but we can add hotbar slots, apply, and that should start to charge up our wireless crafting grid. It did, perfect. So what we can do now is if we right-click with our wireless crafting grid, we can access our refined storage system anywhere within the range of this wireless transmitter. Now, by default, that range is 16 blocks, which is not super far. It means that we can fairly quickly get out of the range of the wireless transmitter. However, we can increase that range by using a range add-on, which is also known as a range upgrade, which isn't too difficult to make. It does require more quartz-enriched iron than we have right now, but the idea being that going forward, we can put in a maximum of 4 range upgrades into the wireless transmitter. I think each range upgrade adds 8 blocks to the range. That's going to give us a maximum range of about 48 blocks, which should be enough for us to kind of cover the entirety of our base, or at least most of our base, with the wireless crafting grid. Going forward, that should basically mean that we can craft items and grab items out of our system without having to fly back up to this crafting grid here. Chat is also asking me to paint the crafters orange. I didn't think about that, but that probably does make a lot of sense. Thankfully, we do have these guys over here that we can craft very quickly into orange dye, and then we can do this, and now they match the aesthetic. I think you can also do the same with the transmitter as well. You can also dot multiple transmitters around the base as well. So we could have another wireless transmitter, for example, over here connected to this cable, and that would extend our range to 16 blocks around that wireless transmitter. So if our base does get too big, we can always just start putting multiple of these around. So now that we have all of that taken care of, all of the refined storage work that I wanted to get done today is done. Also, I took out one of the breed time upgrades by accident, I guess, from over here. Let me pop that back in. Apparently, I also took another one as well, because there's still 2 there. I will take a few of these here to make some room. But now that we have all of the refined storage work taken care of, I've mentioned a little bit, and by a little bit, I think I mentioned it quite a bit now, but I've mentioned quite a bit that I would like to kind of revamp the base. Our base is fine, but especially some of the areas where our machines are getting really janky, and it's quite clear that we don't really have enough space here for all of the machines that we're working with. And also right now our base is currently made entirely out of blocks that we could get within like the first, few hours of play, right? We have wood, we have grass, and we have cobblestone. That's what our base is made out of entirely. And I kind of want to revamp that, I kind of want to make the base look a little bit nicer, give us some more room, and get, a dedicated area for things like blood magic and astral sorcery, as opposed to just having things kind of slapped down randomly all over the base, right? It does work, but it looks a little janky. So what I'm thinking is, between streams, I'm going to work on some base upgrades. One of the mods that's going to allow us to hopefully make our base look a little nicer is Chisel and Bits. So Chisel and Bits is a super nifty mod. And by the way, we are now out of sticks. Our honey block system downstairs has chewed through all of the sticks. And so currently it's not making any more honey, but we will look at getting a tree farm to make more sticks, probably in the next stream, or maybe the one after. But if we quickly craft some sticks, we can make a stone chisel. And what this allows us to do is it allows us to take any block in the game, or most blocks I should say, and chisel them down and carve into them in cool ways. So for example, let's say we take some cobblestone, and we are going to want to get, real quick, a bits bag to hold all of our bits. A bit bag is made from 8 wool and 1 bit. We are currently missing the bit, but essentially, Chisel and Bits, if you place down a block, it breaks each block down into, I think it's 256 bits. So you'll see if I zoom in here that when I hover over each bit of the cobblestone, there's like a little box that goes over it. Hopefully you can see that on Twitch. But essentially, if I left click here, it's going to cut one tiny little bit out of the cobblestone, right? And we get a cobblestone bit. So I can use that to make a bit bag. The bit bag holds bits, and any bits that you have will automatically go into that bit bag. Because what we can do now is, if I bring up the menu here, which I think by default is disabled, if I lower my GUI scale real quick, I went to Options, Controls, typed in Chisel, and then if you click Category, there is one called Radial Menu, so you can just type in Radial Menu without the category button. And by default, this wasn't set to anything. It's blank. I set mine to Left Alt. You can set it to anything you like. But from there, if you hold Left Alt, it brings up this menu, and by default, it's set to single bit. So when you left click, it pulls out a single bit. But you can change that. You can do line. So at that point, if you do, and I'm using Optifine Zoom, by the way, just to show you, like, to zoom in and show what's happening here. But you can do like a full line all at once, like that. We could do another line like so. Left click, tears off another line. We could do a plane, which takes off a whole like flat level like that. You know, we could pull down the whole thing one by one with the plane. And all of my bits right now are being placed into this bit bag. The reason you want a bit bag is that, one, it can hold a lot of bits. Each stack can hold 512, whereas in your inventory, they only stack at 64. So if you try and do this without a bit bag, your inventory is going to fill up with bits incredibly quickly. So just bear that in mind. You do want to have a bit bag. But back over here, there's some super cool stuff that you can do with this. And for me, when I'm thinking about what I want to do for the base redesign, I really like the look of the marble pillars from Astral Sorcery. That being these guys right here, which are pretty easy to make. But I don't think I want my base to be made entirely out of marble. I think I want to kind of have just the Astral Sorcery bit made out of marble, but I love the look of these pillars here. So one of the things we can do with Chisel and Bits, and also, by the way, when you pick up a block like this, like one that's been chiseled, it does become a little janky. And also, I guess if we wanted to, we could like go large cube, take a chunk out of that, go small cube, take a small chunk out of that, and just really make this look horrendous if you want. Then you can pick it up and put it down elsewhere. For now, I'm just going to chisel this completely. So I'm going to fully turn it into bits, so that now that whole block is in here. And I did misspeak earlier. I said 256 bits. I think there were 4,096 bits per block, which is crazy. But if we were to get something like, I think it's these guys, these darker bricks. I really like the look of these. They're regular bricks smelted. If I get like a few of these and we smelt these up real quick, with Chisel and Bits, we should be able to make cool looking pillars like this, but out of basically any block that we like, which is going to be super nice. I don't know if I'm going to go super deep in Chisel and Bits. Of course, if you want, you can really take it to the extremes and make just like super intricate and detailed models. I don't know if I'm quite going to take it that far, but we can, for example, with this right here, we could change it to line mode, and then we could begin kind of carving away at certain points of this brick here to make what looks like a pillar. Okay, so we use this gravel as kind of a way to build onto this brick, if that makes sense. But if we tear this down, you can see now that we've effectively made a brick pillar, which I think looks really neat. Now, I'm not entirely certain that we're going to use brick as our building choice. I do like the look of this brick here, so I might well go with this brick and kind of combine this with some other blocks to make hopefully a fairly nice looking base. But this hopefully shows off like the kind of stuff that we can do with Chisel and Bits. And now that we have these blocks made, going forward, you don't have to quite as painstakingly chisel down each block. The mod does add these blueprints. So there are positive design chisels and negative design chisels. I think the negative design is the one that we want, because I think we're taking a negative out of a pre-existing block. Like if I right-click on this middle one, and then right-click here, you'll see that we've changed this brick into what looked like that brick, right? So if we were to grab more bricks, and thankfully we do have quite a few bricks, so we can get more, of course, very easily, because our dust to clay system is very fast. We just take our dust and then just right-click here over and over again, and we get clay that we can, of course, smelt again and again into the bricks that we're after. But if we, take these, smelt them up, we can, of course, pick this one up for now. But, with this, we could make our pillar a bit taller. We could take our initial, the one we just made, and put it down here. Like that. And then take the top and put that up there. And now we've extended that and made it a bit taller again. If we wanted to make another pillar, we could do this, and this. I think you can wipe these just by crafting them. You can. So then we could, right-click here, right-click here, that copies that pattern. Sometimes better than others. Is our bit bag full? It's not. Oh, our chisel broke. Okay, that is something we do to bear in mind. I could make a diamond chisel here to hopefully make it a little less likely that our chisel breaks in the future. But if we do this, and I try that again, there we go. And then, you know, we can, of course, you can have multiple of these. You don't have to keep reusing the same one like I am doing. But if you want, you can do that, wipe it again, and then do that. And look at that. I've made like another pillar, right? So once you've done the work once, duplicating it to make, you know, like a whole row of pillars, if I wanted, you know, a ton of these around the base, is pretty easy to do, right? And you can do the same, of course, with any kind of craft. Again, if we really wanted to, we could try and make these like indents here by like chiseling out a bit more in the middle and, you know, really take it to the next level. I don't think I'm going to go crazy with the Chisel and Bits because it could take just, you know, way too much time to make all of that happen. But I really like this. I think this mod is super cool. Unfortunately, we don't have regular chisel in the pack, so like the amount of blocks that we have available to us to build out of is not crazy high. There are not that many different blocks available, so our choice is quite limited in terms of which, you know, bricks and blocks we can use to actually make a base. But with Chisel and Bits, we can at least take those blocks and make them into different looking blocks pretty easily. You can also use this to make stairs as well. Like if I want to make brick stairs, those are not in the game by default. But we are not regular brick stairs, of course, but we could make this dark brick. Actually, dark brick might be a thing that has stairs. Yeah, you can make dark brick stairs, but if, for example, there was a block that you couldn't make into stairs, you could make it into stairs using Chisel and Bits, which is super nice. It doesn't work on any machines, so like the furnace can't do it, you know, the crafting grid can't do it, nothing like that. But this does work. I'm also pretty sure that if you wanted to, you can take a block of glowstone, and so long as you like embed one bit of glowstone, so let me quickly like tear this down. If you embed a bit of glowstone into your contraption, it should emit light. So we could embed some like chisel glowstone into the floor, and we could get rid of our torches. We could also, for example, you know, if we go to like maybe small cube mode and just like tear out a cube out of the middle here, be medium cube. Unfortunately, it doesn't quite center up, which is real annoying. It's going to be off center either way. But we could do something like this and then get our glowstone cube, go to medium cube, and then kind of fill that in like that. Obviously, I don't think that looks great. It looks a little off, but you get the idea, right? We could kind of, you know, work at this for a very long time and make something eventually that hopefully looks pretty nice. There, maybe that looks a bit better because now it's centralized, but that will emit light when the light falls, and so you can use these little bits of glowstone embedded into other Chisel and Bit structures to kind of forego having to have torches everywhere, because in general, I'm not a huge fan of having torches everywhere outside of when it's, you know, necessary, when right now it is kind of necessary because it's the only way we have to light the area up. But yeah, we can always tinker around with it. I'm going to do some tinkering between streams to make things hopefully look a little nicer. I might invest into some lanterns as well, maybe. I know Minecraft has them, and then Immersive Engineering also has these cool-looking powered lanterns that we might look into as well. But yeah, between streams, chat, I'm going to do hopefully a bit of work on redesigning the base a little bit. Next time, we will come back. We will probably look at getting a tree farm. I was hoping we could get a tier 4 apiary, but our honey production has stopped over here because we are out of sticks. So we have 47 blocks of honey and everything here is backed up, but we won't get more honey until we get sticks. So next time we'll come back, we'll hopefully look at getting a tree farm so we can automate sticks more easily. We'll probably also look at maybe starting with a bit of Mekanism as well. There are a couple of things that we can't do just yet because we don't have Mekanism available to us. Once we start with Mekanism and once we get the Metallurgic Infuser, we can start getting into things like RF tools and also things like XNet, both super powerful mods that I definitely want to get into sooner rather than later. And also at some point, we do want to come back to Blood Magic and work with this mechanical dirt that right now is just kind of sitting here. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today's stream there.